Fingers crossed. Okay.
So where do we start?
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Hi guys, the Curious Testers once again. As usual, my name is Ade, and this is my fellow colleague and presenter.
Hi, my name is Baba.
Today we have someone very interesting for you guys. She's going to give a perspective as to testing. She is not a tester, which is really good, but she's going to tell us in what way testing helps what she does. I'll let her introduce herself. Over to you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. So my name is Serena. I'm a project manager, and I worked in technology. So I came across testers and different type of projects. So yeah, I'm happy to answer all your questions.
Fantastic. So Serena, we've worked with Serena in the past. We did a project with her, and she was really hands-on. She was very involved, and she would ask so many questions about, like, how did you guys test this? Like, when am I getting the results and stuff? What do you think your interaction with testers was like? Was it a good interaction when we were working on the project together, or was it something you'd rather avoid, get the results from somewhere, and then just present it to whosoever, the stakeholders?
I think in my experience with testers, I think I've been very lucky with the people I work with, because as you said, I ask a lot of questions. I want to understand the technology behind, and I want to understand how things work. So I was lucky enough to have people that took the time to explain things to me. So I think the interaction with technical people helps you to understand what you're trying to deliver, because as a project manager, it's up to you how much you want to get involved and stuck in and understand. And for me, it's important to ask the right question. And also, if I get challenged by the business, if I have a better understanding, then I can try to protect also the technical side, because sometimes those are the people that get blamed when there are delays and stuff like that. But if the project manager is in the position that understands both sides, can be a resource for both sides again.
Good stuff. Fantastic. Serena, I think you should be a politician.
That's what Mum says.
But yeah, okay. So obviously, this is not the first project you're doing.
Yeah.
In your previous projects, what was the interaction like with the not the most recent one that we worked with you on, but like what was your interaction with testers? Like, did you, because like for example in the one we worked on, there were times you were even telling us like, this is what you wanted us to test, which was really nice, because it showed you had an understanding of what we were doing as testing. Like, it wasn't just a case of go do this and show me the results. At times you made suggestions like, can we try this, can we try that, have we done this, have we done that? In that respect, with your previous project, did you have the same interactions with the testers, or was it less of a go do it and then like just bring me the results?
So as I mentioned, I worked in technology before, but I also worked in other industries. So the testing was done differently.
Okay.
But I always kind of had the same approach of trying to ask questions first, trying to observe, and then if I can make suggestion, which they were mostly based on common sense, because I'm not an expert, so I can just think what maybe a customer wants to do with the product. So how do we test that? How do we confirm that works? How the customer will use it? So I think my question and my ask was mostly based on common sense, so that it's applicable, I think, to any industry, just thinking from a customer perspective.
Yeah, because when we worked with you, I think what we noticed as well is there were these calls with loads of different teams, and when difficult questions came, I think definitely comparing to previous job roles and other people that we worked with, you were able to sort of know where the question should go to, and that kind of thing. So at the start of the project, like, do you kind of, when you get to know all the teams, do you sort of speak to them and find out what they do exactly? Because it felt like you knew every team more, like, what they actually do, rather than like, you know what I mean? Like, from a very high level, you kind of knew exactly what they did. So you knew where to like delegate the question to and sort of get things moving. Do you know what I mean? So has that always been your approach?
I think specific for the project that we worked together, it took me a long time, because there were loads of people involved, loads of areas. And I think it has been one of the projects I learned the most from. But it wasn't easy to always know who to speak to. So it just took a lot of time and used the people around me to understand how the organization worked and who will be able to help me to answer that specific question. And over time, with more time spending on the project and working with people, then I got to know everyone that I needed to speak to, and then it was easy to just address and speak to them. Can you help with this? And I think maybe I'm pretty good with people, so I'm able to like establish good relationship, and then it's easy to ask for help especially when you're in trouble. So
yeah, I think there is that like testers and PMs. I think there's a shared skill set that we should all try to get to, and I feel like, for example, at the start, maybe I don't know, I can't speak for you, but definitely I wasn't the best at maybe communicating or whatever, but you know, like you want results from us, for example, and we have to communicate to you. So like for testers that are watching this, like hearing it from the PM, how would you advise testers to communicate better? Like, you know, because I feel like that is a very key thing, especially when you have like deliverables and stuff like that. That communication, how do you say, like, you know, what's the ideal way, or how can it be improved?
I think for any technical person dealing with someone that's not technical, trying to put yourself in their shoes and trying to find a way to explain it with very simple terms, because otherwise it would be hard for someone that doesn't understand the technology behind it to then explain to someone else, because most of the time we'll be asked to give a high level explanation, but if we don't understand it, then it's hard. And I think sometimes people feel threatened about asking more questions or pretending they understand and they don't, and then trying to do their own research and they clearly don't get it. So I think it's also hard for technical people to just dumb it down, I guess. But I think it's a very good skill when you're working with people that are not super technical.
Well, I need to interject at this point. Serena, I think you answered that question, in my opinion, brilliantly. As a tester and as a PM, I remember when we started the project, and you took out time to actually understand what was going on. And because of that, obviously, you were over time. I noticed like you were able to just ask questions, and you knew what you were asking. Like you. To me, anyway, throughout the whole project, you weren't asking questions that were irrelevant to what we're doing. Everything was based on it, and you understood the technical part of it. Like when we were talking, because you were taking our time to understand what we were doing, which is really, really good. A lot of project managers, they just want timelines and deliverables. They don't care, like, oh, the testing. They're like, oh yeah, go do whatever you want. Like, I'm giving you 2 weeks, just come back with the answer. But you went like that. You were so involved in it. You know, even as far as like procuring the devices we were using, you were trying to help us, like, oh, like, who do I need to talk to about this? You know, how can you get it? And I think that was a very, very smart move. And I think in general, it didn't just help me to do my job well. I think it helped a lot of us to do our jobs well. And yeah, it was really good. I think you're one of the top project managers I've worked with. No, hey. Let's be careful. You know, and I'm not saying this.
Enjoy it for a little bit.
And I'm not saying this to toot your horn, but any one of us that worked on the project, we could all attest to it that this project manager knew what they were doing more than most. You understood all the testing we did. You even all the terms we were using, you knew how to use them. Like when we say, oh, okay, we just want to do a smoke test, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. Guys, let's just do a smoke testing. Let's just do a sanity testing. Let's do a regression. You understood all of those things, and it makes our job as QAs or as testers, it made it more appreciated, because you knew what we were doing, and you understood, like, okay, oh, if we wanted to do a smoke test, and oh yeah, this is going to take us 1 day, you know, or if we wanted to do like regression, like, oh, okay, oh guys, it's going to take you 2 days or something, which was really good. So I have to give you credit for that.
Yeah, and I think by spending time and taking the time to understand your job and other people's job I work with, I started to appreciate more what you guys do. And unless you take the time to do that, you don't fully get what people do around you. And in my opinion, it was actually fun. I enjoyed it being so involved. Obviously, that was my only project. It was big, so obviously my manager would not assign me to something else. But that gave me the time and the opportunity to get as much as involved as I wanted to be. And that was also like my manager gave me the freedom to do that. So again, I think I've been very, very lucky with the people I've met and I work with, and that took the time to explain things to me. So yeah, that helped too. So it made my job much easier, because then I could help you guys, but also help other people in the business that relied on us and our delivery.
Yeah, there was a certain level of calmness as well and collectedness in the project. So generally what tends to happen, like just because of human nature, like the more you get involved into a project, I don't know, people start getting stressed out as well. And maybe because they feel very passionately about something or whatever, and it happens in all projects where someone, you feel like, are you okay? You know, is everything all right? But somehow, because what was evident was that you kind of just let it be. You just, okay, you just got to the crux of like, what's the actual issue? And I think, we've all, like, me and Ade have spoken about the project we were on. We actually learned about ourselves as well, which is like really good, because, like, it's probably one of the biggest projects we worked on with like so many different people and so many different things that we have to test. But because, like, his previous point was you kind of empowered us to get on with what we need to do. You knew what we needed to do, but because of the more the social aspect of it, I felt like I learned a lot as well, just by watching other people and how they react to certain things. I'm like, yeah, I could do it that way too. So like, I mean, that calmness that you have, is that like an acquired skill? Is that because obviously everyone can benefit from having that, or have you kind of like always been like naturally that way? And do you know what I mean? Because that's really important, I think, as someone at the helm, which is what you were. So yeah, like that calmness, where do you get that from? Is that something is that experience, or is that just something?
I think it's just naturally the personality. Like, it's a personality trait. I always think there is no reason to panic. It's not going to help you to get anywhere.
Yes.
So it's better to look at the problem. Okay, how do I resolve it, instead of just like panic and complain about it. So I think I approach that in my personal life too, and I think it just helps. Obviously, as you said, human nature sometimes comes in, and everyone has emotions, and you can get anxious and people get frustrated. Those are all normal, and it happens a lot, especially when you work with a wide range of people, which everyone has their own personalities, and not everyone is easy to work with. But if you can detach your personal feelings as much as you can, obviously, and trying to be more objective, I think it does help to not get too frustrated or too anxious about something.
Yeah, 100%.
And at the end of the day, we're just trying to do our best. We're all working towards the same goal. So we'll do our best, and I think that's been recognized.
Okay, I was gonna also ask you. So obviously, with testing and the project we worked on previously, there were times I noticed that you yourself, you'd go and you do stuff, and you report it back, like during a meeting, and say, "Oh, like I was trying to do this, and I found this." How did that make you? Did I like sort of give you an insight to like, oh yeah, I feel I can do testing, or did that make you feel like, oh yeah, I can do this as well, or how did that make you feel?
I feel like I have, also from the feedback I received from people, I think I kind of like gain more awareness of maybe I'm capable of more technical roles than I thought I was. And I feel since I joined this team and I felt fully empowered to do my job, I discovered my full potential. While in the past, because maybe my manager were less empowering or less technical, I felt I wasn't very good at my job. And that changed completely in a year and a half I've been in this team, and the feedback I received from people. So definitely my perspective has changed, and also the trust I gained from people, and the fact that it just gave me more, I don't know, I started to use my brain a little bit more and say, I'm gonna try to think outside the box. How do I resolve this? And I just go and do stuff, even if when I wasn't asked to. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but I learned something from. from it.
Because when I would read Ade's tickets or even my own, I'd be like, what am I thinking? You actually raised some tickets, which were very clear and like damn, okay, we should write it like Serena. Like she showed us up. But yeah, no, like I think that's probably what you're getting at as well, because that adaptability. So, but how would you like turn the tables around, and how could we adapt more to like help the project managers? Do you know what I mean? Because I think it's very rare to have a project manager that can like write tickets like how we write it, probably better than us as well.
You could be telling them that.
but we're getting to the point where how can we like do a similar thing, right? Like, because a lot of the times, especially if we're like integrating systems, a lot like the testers maybe don't need to be waiting around so much. Is there anything that we could do, be more proactive with, for example? Like, how could we kind of get up to speed better and that kind of thing? Like, do you have any advice for us?
I think most of the time is about asking questions and trying to understand the environment that you're working with and the people you're working with, because I don't think there is one size fits all. Every project will be different and will have different needs and different requirements. So just agreeing what works at the start of the project. So anyone can make suggestions. It's not up to one person to decide what the structure of the project will be, because it doesn't work. Throughout my career, I learned that doesn't work. So the more you engage and the more you let the team feel empowered, the more they're willing to work with you. And it's a massive learning I gained throughout my career, and I noticed that it's true. Like everyone wants to feel you're delivering something, you're essential, and you contributing. Because if you don't feel that way, you're gonna be disengaged. You're not gonna be someone that is willing to help when something goes wrong. So that's what I try to keep in mind when I start a project and I start working with people I didn't know before, but even with people that I worked with before, everyone needs to, like, it's there for a reason, and you need to feel that way.
Because at the beginning, like, there's always this like weird Mexican standoff, especially when people don't really know each other. And like, just to explain from like the tester's perspective, and you tell me if you agree, but like when you have people of authority, like PMs, that kind of thing, we know that you guys have like the money that ultimately goes into our timesheet, so we're a little bit afraid at the start, and that can sometimes get in the way of like building that bridge. Do you know what I mean? Which it happens organically later, but it could have happened way earlier. So like, for example, one of the things that we saw you do was like go and work, like sit next to someone and just like actually work through something with them, and you start to build these kind of little networks. I feel like, I don't know if I did that at the start, to be honest, but in the end I was working with all these other people. So like, I guess that's just an analysis or like a little post-mortem, that's something I would do earlier on. But from the project that we just worked on, what in like the percentage of how much human interaction like socially was important, what percentage would you put that at, to take that approach of actually going to
I think, considering that we are in a hybrid model and not everyone is in the office at the same time, we did pretty well. There were loads of occasions, especially at the end, when there's a lot of pressure to finish off and deliver. Like, we made sure that we were all in the office on the same day, and I think it did help, not only to obviously deliver faster and do testing faster, but I think it just built relationship across, like, there were some people from other teams that we work with, but we actually haven't met before. So they sat with us and they work in the same area. So I think that was really nice. So I think the social element is important. I like that. I would never choose to work completely remotely. I think it will drive me crazy, personally speaking. I'm quite outgoing, and I think it's important. And I think there has always been a bit of banter during meetings. It's never been too, as you said, quite calm, quite relaxed environment. And I think that helped. So
okay, fantastic. I was going to ask you to take the lead off of that. So obviously we've just concluded the project. Would you recommend PMs working directly with testers if you were to do another project, or would you just say let everybody just walk in their silo and then bring the results together? Because obviously you were very, very involved in what we were doing. There were days like we were in the office together, like you rightly said, you know, and you were seeing like literally what we were doing. Some PMs they don't do that. So do you think, would you advise that PMs should be involved in the whole testing process and be hands-on as well? Is that an opinion you share?
If you want to be technical, 100%. You're not gonna get the same understanding and the same knowledge without doing that. And I observed other PMs or program manager that I learned from doing a similar approach. But I know that not everyone is the same and behave the same way or just get involved the same way. And I guess it's also down to preference of what you want to work on and what you want to get experience in. But I think it does help. Especially when you're questioned. If you don't understand it, you can't answer the question. That will be evident to anyone in front of you. So, in my opinion, I get very nervous when I don't understand something. So that was also for my own benefit. I want to understand what I'm delivering. I'm not confident enough on delivering something I don't fully understand. So that's just the way I am. But not everyone needs to be in the level of detail I was. But it paid off. So
and I can just attest to that quickly. Like Serena was so hands-on. She would come in and she would like sit up, like towards the end she would sit with us testers and literally see what we're doing. And I know there were times that we had raised issues and you'd come and you'd be like, oh, like, can you show me and stuff, which was really good. It made the transparency in testing like so easy, like, because we couldn't lie to you basically, like, oh yeah, we've done this, and then we hadn't done it, because you see what we had done, you know, you were reading all the reports and everything. I wanted to ask you, okay, obviously during the whole project we were raising issues. Did you think that our issues, I know Baba's touched on it a bit, did you think, like, by reading like one of the tickets we raised, did you think it made sense to you, or like just generally, like, you read it, but okay, yeah, I sort of understand what's going on here, like they found this issue, like did it make sense to you as a project manager, or you were just like, this is...
Not all the time, but I think it was dependent on the nature of the issue. Some were something that any customer can see, like the TV doesn't turn on. I mean, it's evident. But when they were more technical, then obviously, and relying on logs and stuff like that, it was much harder for me to guess whether it was a fair concern or not. Even just to assign priority and work with the product team. So I think it really depended on what was the issue that we were looking at.
Okay, but do you think, like, maybe if you're looking at like maybe an issue that doesn't require logs and stuff, did you think that maybe when we added videos to it and pictures, did it help? Was it useful for you? Okay.
Yeah. It was much easier to understand and just understand what you guys were explaining the ticket in words by looking at a video. It was clear. I think also what I noticed that, because not all the time we're the same people writing tickets, and there were people that sometimes were writing tickets but were not as involved in terms of attending the meetings. And I noticed the way they were writing tickets, it was very different and much harder for me to understand, because they were not as involved, and I think they were not maybe used to the way we were working together. So the way they were writing tickets was much harder for me to understand.
They didn't pass the vibe check.
Exactly. So then I will have to go and speak to one of the other testers and say, can you explain it to me, because I don't fully get it. Or maybe they were raising tickets or stuff that weren't already addressed and discussed on a meeting, but because they were not as involved, they didn't know. So I think, and I don't know why that happened, whether because it's just annual leave, so people were covering for each other, or like they were not as involved because that was what the team wanted. But that's just something I noticed as a PM. And something I wanted to mention about building relationship, I think something that naturally happens in a project, people tend to postpone raising bad news or issues. And And I felt that in our project, that didn't happen. You mentioned about transparency.
Yeah.
I think because everyone was working together, we were quite transparent when something didn't work.
Yeah.
And I think that comes down on building relationship. If you feel like you are in an environment that you can speak freely, then you shouldn't be afraid of raising an issue.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I consciously try to do, because I know it just doesn't help anyone to just keep it under the rug, and it will eventually will come up.
Yeah.
So it's better to address sooner before it gets escalated than it's much harder to fix.
To be honest, like for testers, when we raise a ticket, we're so happy. Like you know, like, oh yes, this is a ticket, like this is an issue, like, because that is like currency for us.
Yeah.
You know, but what I think you touched on a very interesting point, because there's always this battle that kind of maybe tends to happen where we want to put more tickets on the thing, but there are some stakeholders that want to see tickets getting removed. And so there are times when that conflict becomes apparent, and then you like it can happen on a call where it gets a little bit heated or whatever. But again, I think that boils down to, like, there was an experience, like let's just say it was in a previous project where you know, a tester had raised a ticket but was told that the ticket was ridiculous, quote unquote. But that's because you got to understand, the person that's saying the ticket's ridiculous has this stress of like, oh, do you know, I want to actually see tickets getting removed now, rather than like, why is this like staying like forever, nothing's happening. And they got to think about deprioritizing things and thinking about more the priority. But I think it does circle back again to, like, if you have that good relationship, like there were some people on the project that I didn't necessarily speak to in person, where I found that was where I had maybe certain conflicts with, you know. Whereas if like, it's a bit weird, but, well, maybe it's not, but common sense isn't always common practice, right? So like, maybe as something that, you know, going forward for testers listening and even ourselves, if you build that sort of like initial thing, you're not gonna have this sort of like friction on a call. It's less likely. Do you know what I mean? Because you're gonna have spoken about it beforehand, and you can kind of get on the same page. So I definitely felt like that's something that I will, like, you know, always remember going forward, not to underestimate the human aspect of it, which is challenging because of the remote working at times and whatever, but there's still always a way, you know.
So just to add to what Baba said, and what Serena was saying as well, the transparency thing and the communication, the social bit relating to the people is so important, because, for example, with Serena, I don't want to say this as a hierarchy system, but like, it was like testers, and then you have the developers, and then you have engineering managers, and then I don't know, maybe like the business analyst, and then you have the project manager. So like the project manager was like right at the top. This is why it was so good that working on the project, that you were able to like not just relate to each person in that hierarchy system, but you were able to like come all the way down to even us as testers. I'm not saying like testers at the bottom of the rank or anything, but like you were able to come all the way down and like, you know, still relate to us and be like, look, guys, this is what we need to do and how we need to do it, or this is what we want from you guys. You know, it was so nice having that communication from you constantly, like, oh, look, this is what the project is saying, this is how they want to move, this is the direction they're going in. So yeah, I have to give you credit for that, because some of these projects I've been on, I've never met the project manager.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see,
so
like,
how was the testing done?
We just did it. They
Just do it.
Yeah, they just open up a
who
page.
are you reporting the results to?
We just, there's just a page somewhere. Just put the result there, and so I could literally go. I mean, I didn't do that, but I could literally just go and put pass, fail. But yeah, so many projects I've worked on, and I haven't met the project manager. Like, you know, I'm just getting timelines from like maybe my manager saying, oh, yeah, this is due 2 weeks. You know, they don't know how I've tested it. They don't have any idea. You know, yeah. But you were so involved, like all the timelines and everything, how the testing was going. I think we're having a meeting almost every day or something, and then it sort of tapered down. Yeah, and then it sort of tapered down, which is really good. So yeah, I have to give you credit for that once again. How you were so involved in everything, from the developers to the QAs to the. I know you were really really involved, so I give you credit for that.
And I disagree with the hierarchy. I felt like it was the other way around because I can't deliver unless everyone else is doing their job. So for me, it's like I'm just enabling you guys to do your job better. And I feel like we were all on the same level. Everyone was doing something different to contribute to the project. So I was just kind of like the link between the business and the technical side. I guess maybe because the scope of the project that we're working on, it was mostly testing. There was a bit of development, but it was verifying that worked. So it started from testing, and I guess that helped me to focus on that first. But that's very interesting to hear that you haven't even met the PM.
So how would you say just some words of encouragement to QAs? Would you encourage QAs to always like if they can, if it's possible, they should approach like the project managers and like just get to try and know them, and obviously that way, because like when we had questions, because we knew you, we would always come, oh Serena, like what's going on here, or Serena, or like what's the answer to this, or Serena, and then you always go, oh yeah, let me find out, or oh no, we had a meeting and we're not going in this direction anymore. It was quick, we didn't have to wait days or weeks. The projects have had to wait like literally a month for answers. And I'm not making this up. Obviously, we can't name names or anything. But
let's not talk about John now. Just joking. That's not
made
the name up. Just made the name up.
But because we were able to relate to you, we had that relationship. It was easy to get answers, and by getting answers, we knew what direction to move in with our testing. Would you advise QAs? I know this is not a generic advice, but in your own opinion, do you think like QAs testers should like have a relationship with the project managers, like talk to them?
I mean, yes, of course. I think as a PM, you have to do stakeholder management at the start. You have to map your stakeholders, and you were my stakeholders. So I couldn't just progress with the project without getting you involved. So for me, even when we had those twice a week, the call discussing all the defects and stuff, everyone was in there, because obviously if anything changed to the scope, that would change the scope of the testing as well. So for me, it didn't make any sense to not involve you and let you know what has changed. So I think it should come from the project manager to make sure that QAs are involved. But why QA cannot just raise a question and just speak to the PM or any other member of the team, the project team? And I think you guys were pinging me directly and asking questions. So everyone did that throughout the project, which I felt like it was very nice that you rely on me and you count on me. And I think it always should be the case. We are there. We are helping the team to get to the end of the project. That's our job. So we're here to help.
Because that was going to be a question, but you've kind of already answered it. It's like, how do you feel in terms, because I guess on paper at least, that you have that authority, but you didn't make it come across that way, that like I'm the authority and blah blah blah, whereas you kind of, it felt very flat structure. And I think that's why the communication was so good. But this is kind of like a double-edged sword in a way, because in a way, by talking to you, we're talking to a kind of a rare case, because I've definitely been on projects where that's not been the case, and as you alluded to. But you must have worked with other project managers in previous jobs and companies that maybe you could see the style of their project management is maybe different to yours, for example. What would your recommendation be to interact with PMs like that? Like, how could we sort of like make it more like how we had this project and less like how it would have naturally, organically happened, given that you have different kind of styles, if that makes sense?
I think in my experience, when I dealt with people that behave in the way you just described, I think it comes from a place of fear, and they feel threatened.
This is deep.
Because they don't understand it, so they will just become authoritative. Well, for me, I'm not the expert, so I have to rely on you guys to provide me the information, and then I can move forward with that. So I think maybe tips to deal with certain personality is trying to understand why they're behaving in that specific way. And just be factual, like provide facts, provide data, provide numbers. They can't argue with that. So obviously try to not get involved emotionally, like don't get frustrated, don't get angry, and that doesn't go anywhere, especially with people like
that's the
that.
hardest thing though.
Exactly. But I had experience where I felt like I wasn't appreciated, and then I realized, because I had very good mentors as well, that's nothing to do with my expertise or my knowledge or my way of working. It's their way, but you still need to find a way to work with them, because you can't change the organization. You can't change, I'm not going to work with that person. It doesn't work that way. So you just need to find a way that works. And I think reminding yourself that probably that person, if it's behaving that way, it's something to do with them and their maybe little understanding of what's going on. So maybe just try to spend more time with them. And trying to understand why they react in a certain way. That may maybe diffuse the situation.
Okay. I think my final question to you, Serena, is how important do you think testing is as a project manager?
Very important. Otherwise, how can you prove that something you build works?
We like to hear this. We like to hear this.
But it's true. Like, I don't think there is any product that has been ever developed, no matter what the product is, that wasn't tested. You can't prove that something works until you test it. So it's an essential step before you can launch something.
Thank you, Serena.
Thanks. Thanks again, and thanks for watching. And I think we've raised the bar quite high with this podcast. So thanks for coming on and speaking to us. But I think what's really great is that we can get an insight into what was once closed, and we don't know how other people think, but this is I think a big part of that. Hopefully it helps everybody, and thanks again.
Thank you guys. Cheers.
Bye.
Yay, Serena, well done. Thank you so much. You're so professional.